Fuller, Gaines, Hancock, Harmon, Hernandez, Huff, Kehoe, LaMalfa, Leno, Ted Lieu, Carol Lieu, Lowenthal, Negrete McLeod, Padilla, Pavley, Price, Rubio, Runner, Semidian, Steinberg, Strickland, Vargas, Walters, Wolk, Wright, Weiland, Yee.
Members, please report to today's session in Senate chambers. A quorum. Will the absent members please come to the Senate chambers? Would the members and our guests beyond the rail and in the gallery please rise? We will be led in prayer this morning by our guest chaplain, Father Vahan Gosdanian, pastor, Holy Trinity Armenian Church, Fresno, California.
Thank you. Let us pray. Almighty God, we thank you for granting us this day to gather here at the California State Capitol to join the state legislature in commemorating the 96th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. We come before you this morning with a humble heart, praying for the repose of the 1.5 million victims of the Armenian Genocide and for all the innocent men, women, and children who were subjected to similar atrocities throughout history. We pray also that through proper recognition and justice, the souls of all victims will one day truly rest in peace. Today we have come here as citizens of humanity, as brothers and sisters of differing faiths and ethnicities, but who are united in a common cause and purpose of freedom and dignity for all mankind. We beseech you to bless this gathering of honorable and admirable leaders who have designated this time to pay homage to our martyrs. Bless our governor and the members of the California legislature also for their continued support and encouragement of our cause. Lead them in their mission as guardians of public interest and guide them as they serve the best interests of our beloved Golden State of California. We thank you for your bountiful blessings. Amen.
We will be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Senator Joel Anderson. United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, privileges of the floor. Senator Steinberg, did you wish to begin? Senator Pavley? We'll begin with you. For what purpose do you rise, Senator Pavley? We have a motion and resolution. Please proceed. Her mic is not up.
We'll try this again. Thank you very much, Madam President. Under motions and resolutions. Yes, many of you will notice we have an additional flag up near the dais this morning. It's the flag of Chile, and it's in honor of a distinguished delegation that's gathering at the back of the chamber. Senators DeSalle, Hancock, and Huff joined me in visiting this wonderful country. As you may know, Chile's economy is one of the fastest growing in Latin America, and there's a two-way trade between Chile and California, which is currently worth over $1.5 billion each year. Last year, when we attended this beautiful country, we were all impressed with the innovation and enthusiasm of the Chilean people. Also last year, Chilean President Piñera created a Chile-California Council consisting of government and business leaders aimed at promoting and supporting joint public-private initiatives. The august delegation we have in our chamber today is visiting California for the inaugural meeting of this new council. It is my privilege to introduce to you today the leader of the delegation, the Undersecretary of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Fernando Schmidt. He is joined by the Ambassador of Chile to the United States, Arturo Frumendoa. Also accompanying the Undersecretary and the Ambassador are the President of the Chile-California Council and owner of Veramonte Winery, which they remembered, not me, of course, Agustin Enadus, also the Director of North and Central America and the Caribbean for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Isauro Torres, the Director of Energy, Science and Innovation and Technology for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who I've had the pleasure of meeting on several occasions, Gabriel Rodriguez, the Consul General of Chile in San Francisco, Rolando Ortega, the Technical Secretary of the Chile-California Partnership, someone who we remember meeting in Chile, Cristobal Barros, and the President of the American Chamber of Commerce in Chile, Javier Irarrázaval. We have so much in common and so much to share. It is my hope that this visit will further the good rapport between California and Chile, and that working together we can ensure a mutually beneficial and enduring partnership. Please join me in extending a warm California welcome to our good friends from the country of Chile. With the permission of the Chamber, the Undersecretary would like to welcome you and say a few words.
Thank you, and welcome to your guests.
Honorable Senators, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great privilege to address you from this stage. Just for a reflection, a very brief reflection. Chile and California have a long history, a shared history, not just from the Spanish heritage and the 19th century gold rush, but also from the Chile-California plan of the 1960s, a plan that we want to extend furthermore with your approval or your commitment, for seeking opportunities for extending trade, promoting investment, making science together, and having a good and further exchange of students to both sides. Today, trade relations between Chile and California reach $1.8 billion. We believe that this is a figure that has to grow, thus creating new jobs in California, new jobs in Chile. Student relations are minimal. So 120 students, California students, are currently studying in Chile, and a similar figure of Chilean students currently studying in California. This number has to multiply, because our two geographical countries have a lot of elements in common in geography, in opportunities, the possibilities of reaching new standards of life. We would like to take this opportunity for asking your support for the Chile-California Council, which endeavors, which activities will be inaugurated tomorrow in San Francisco. Thank you very much, and I hope that the legislative activities will be further improved in both directions. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, and if their guests would like their photos taken, members may join them at the back. Senator Dutton, for what purpose do you rise?
An announcement.
Please proceed.
Madam President, it's just been brought to my attention that apparently there's a birthday coming up on Saturday. I believe it's your birthday this Saturday. And we just want to wish you a happy birthday. Also, your staff has asked me to inform the members that there will be a brief or a cake and appropriate refreshments in your office in room 3063 following session. So happy birthday, Madam President.
Thank you, and I invite everyone and appreciate this surprise this morning, Senator Dutton. Thank you. Under privileges of the floor, Senator Simitian, are you prepared? We'll wait a few more minutes. Thank you.
I know, but I've got backed up from the other day when
We will move on and come back to privileges of the floor. Senator Kehoe, for what purpose do you rise?
Members, may I have your attention very briefly for one of our outstanding Senate employees who is going to retire today. It's her last day. Sally Ann Romo, who has staffed appropriations for many years, is leaving us tomorrow in order to move to Palm Springs, where she'll be married to her longtime friend, Dr. David Newman, in June. So congratulations to Sally Ann. Sally Ann worked for the Senate for 14 years and has been committee secretary in Senate Appropriations for the past 10 and knows the staff, supports the staff so well there. Prior to her coming to Appropriations Committee, she also worked for Senators Nell Soto and Steve Peace. She's been a wonderful addition to the Senate family. Her calm nature, her organized work demeanor keep the sometimes chaotic pace of appropriations under control. So thank you, Sally Ann. We'll all miss you, and we wish you many happy returns in your new life in Southern California. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kehoe. And Senator Pavley, would you like to take up your resolution? We'll move to motions from the floor.
It's not a resolution. It's under privileges of the floor for a quick introduction.
That would be fine. Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. Many of you might have noticed down in the hallways along the governor's office some new paintings that are hanging up there. I urge you to look at them, but also to read the descriptions and captions of them and the biographies of the painters. This is all part of Autism Awareness Month. And in honor of autism awareness and the families that live with autism each and every day, I'm pleased to announce that the UC Davis Mind Institute is sharing part of their art collection in the exhibition downstairs. While unable to communicate well or fully participate in social life, many people with autism have unique and amazing artistic abilities. I'd also like to bring to your attention our visitors on the floor today from the Mind Institute, gathering at the back of the room, Nancy Brodowski, who's board chair, Terry Contenti, community relations officer, John Mathias, a board member and union development officer, and Nari Shakaro, chief administrative office. Thank you for supporting Autism Awareness Month, and thank you, people from the Mind Institute. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome to your guests, and any photos can be taken on the back of the chambers. Members, I would like your attention. Let's see if we can just settle down a little bit and quiet down a little bit and move forward with Senator Mark Leno. For what purposes do you rise?
To join with Senator Pavley in recognizing Autism Month. I also want to welcome our guests to the floor and also to thank Senator Pavley for her leadership on this issue of autism, growing epidemic here in California, across the nation as well, and also to thank our pro tem Senator Steinberg for establishing, I think, more than a dozen autism task forces across the state. I've had the great privilege of working with over 50 or so leaders in the San Francisco Bay Area. We have the San Francisco Marin Autism Resource Task Force. Consumers, families, educators, advocates, all working on the issues of access to insurance, employment, and housing, issues that are only going to become more challenging as an entire generation through this epidemic are going to face their adulthood and later years and have all of the needs that we have, but in a very different kind of way and a much more challenging way. We have to be prepared for that. Those at the Mind Institute are certainly helping us. The task forces around the state, which are happening in a bipartisan fashion, will better inform us to craft public policy to address the needs of this population. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Steinberg, for what purpose do you
Thank you very much. I also want to speak, I guess it's not a voting resolution, but just say a few words about the Mind Institute. And I know we had a Democratic policy retreat several months ago at the Institute itself, and I would say that if you want to know some of what's going right with California in these tough times, spend some time at the Mind. This is an institution now in its second decade that is the leading research institution on autism and autism-related disorders. 38 senior scientists, 82 postdoctoral fellows, over 250 employees, and they are on the cutting edge. I'm very proud that they sit in my district and that there is hope and some services for families with children that are living with one of these disorders. There is hope, in large part because of the Mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any other privileges from the floor? Senator Wright.
Madam President, members, a bit of good news. The Space Shuttle program, as some of you may recall, is being concluded this year. And NASA established a competition to see where they were going to put the orbiters. That, by the way, were all made in California. The program of the Space Shuttle started in Downey, and they were assembled in Palmdale in Senator Runner's district. The Space Shuttle Endeavour is going to be permanently housed at the California Science Center after we beat out some 11 states who were competing for the honor to house that ship. By the way, the Endeavour is going to make its last flight on April 29th of this year, where it's going to be piloted by the husband of Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords, who you know was shot in a town hall meeting in Arizona. He will pilot the ship. She will be there for the launch of the Endeavour, and then the Endeavour will come home to California, where we'll be on permanent display at the California Science Center in Los Angeles, California. The ship has made some 4,000 or 5,000 orbits around the Earth, and we're going to bring it home later this year to Southern California, where she was born.
Thank you for that welcome news. Members, can you take your seats? We have another piece of business we'd like to do. I'd like everyone to sort of take their seats, and we will finish this section.
Madam President.
For what purposes do you rise?
For purposes of introduction, Madam President, members, before I introduce our guests here in the chambers today, let me just remind us all that our colleagues on the Assembly side are taking up a resolution commemorating the 95th anniversary of the Armenian Genocide. That measure will be on its way to us shortly. But before I introduce our guest who's here to speak briefly about the genocide awareness effort, I wonder if we could have a moment of silence, Madam President, for the 1.5 million victims of the Armenian Genocide. A moment of silence, please.
Members, may we have a moment of silence?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, members. It's my pleasure to introduce a longtime friend, Roxanne Maksadjian, who is with the Genocide Education Project. Each year when we have this conversation about the Armenian genocide, the question is asked again and again, why is it we revisit this issue on the floor of the California State Senate? And the answer, of course, is because it is only by our awareness and understanding of events like these that we can prevent similar misdeeds in the years and the centuries ahead. President Abraham Lincoln, many years ago, made the observation that to sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men. That is why each year we are not silent. That is why each year we speak up, we remember the events of days gone by, and we recommit ourselves to ensure that such events will not occur in the future. A major part of making that happen is a group called the Genocide Education Project, which is a nonprofit educational organization that works to help teachers incorporate lessons on genocide and human rights into their classrooms. I'm very pleased, as I say, to have my friend Roxanne Maksadjian here today from the Genocide Education Project to share a few words with the California State Senate. Roxanne?
Thank you very much, Senator Simitian, for the invitation to speak today. Honorable senators and honored guests, on behalf of the Genocide Education Project, thank you very much for pausing this morning to remember the Armenian genocide, the 20th century's first major crime against humanity, in which more than half of the Armenian population was murdered by the authorities of the Turkish Empire, and remaining survivors were driven out, their properties and institutions stolen or destroyed. Your commemoration today is all important. It is a critical example of the education that needs to take place on all levels of civic life. We believe that more than anything else, education holds the key to preventing genocide, bringing light to the darkness, revealing truth to denial, enabling action in the midst of inaction. Today, an exhibit on the Near East Relief Fund will open here in the Capitol building. Near East Relief was the first major United States humanitarian aid effort helping to provide for the needs of the Armenian genocide orphans. And I want you to know that the Genocide Education Project is now developing new lesson plans on this very subject of the Near East Relief Fund, teaching students how American history intersects with Armenian history. And this year, our commemoration day falls on Easter Sunday. So as the first nation to formally accept Christianity, Armenians will be both commemorating the near annihilation of their people while also celebrating their resurrection in a way, their incredible survival. In the Armenian language, the month of April, pronounced Abril, means to live. And education, we feel, is the best way to ensure that the positive lessons of the genocide live on in our children. When we teach them about genocide, we empower them to take charge of the world full of hostilities and hatred, a world in which such mass atrocities are not yet a thing of the past, and to reshape it as a more humane and a more just world. So, in hopeful anticipation of the passage of the resolution that will come before you shortly, we say to the California Legislature, to you, the Senate, thank you for the recognition of history, for your defense of truth, and for your commitment to our future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Senator.
Madam President.
Senator Weiland, would you like to speak on this issue?
I'd just like to add my own thoughts about this issue and about the education issue. The reality is it is education that will change this, and it's education in schools. I've carried a bill, I think twice, to have this included in, and I wish the Speaker would be aware of this, twice to get this education included in the curriculum. And my argument has been all the way back with Assemblyman Paul Koretz when we tried this, and our bill in those days, got completely transformed in the Senate by the then Chair of Education. If we really want education, then that's what it needs. And that education should include oral history, because we have survivors not only of the Holocaust, we have the memories passed down in families of the original 20th century genocide, the Armenian genocide. And as the speaker pointed out, there are genocides today. The only way we're going to really fulfill the promise of education so that the people know and understand this is to put it in the curriculum. So I hope that this opens the way to try this again, get it in the high school curriculum where it ought to be. There have been genocides in Rwanda, been genocides in Cambodia, and people are alive today who can tell that history. We all know the most extensive oral history is of the Holocaust. There is a recording of an interview of virtually every single Holocaust survivor. Steven Spielberg helped fund that. We ought to aim to try to do that for these other genocides and include that, because that's the way we're going to stop it. The awareness of it and the proper role of the United States in trying to prevent it. So I appreciate the resolution. I appreciate the emphasis on education. I really think that's the way we're going to try to stop it in the world. Thank you.
Senator De Leon, would you like to speak on this issue?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleague, Mr. Joe Simitian, for bringing this measure up, which is very important. I know we do this on an annual basis, and I'm very proud to represent Little Armenia in Los Angeles, California. Obviously, we have many Armenians who come from throughout the world, whether they come from Lebanon, whether they come from Syria, whether they come from Iran, or the former Soviet Union, which is now today the Republic of Armenia. Many immigrants who come to California, which is home to the largest Armenian population outside of Armenia, vast majority come either to Southern California, to the Bay Area, or the Central Valley. If you're a newly immigrant coming to America, many of them actually land in East Hollywood in Little Armenia. So this is a very important day to continuously commemorate this issue. And the reason being is because, unfortunately and sadly, revisionism continues to take place throughout the world when we talk about this specific issue. Senator Mark Weiland had articulated very nicely the genocides that have taken place throughout the world. We have genocide right now taking place, as our majority leader, Ellen Corbett, who educated us just a few days ago in what has taken place in the country formerly known as Zaire, which is Congo today, with regards to the rape and mutilation of women and young girls. The Sudan with the Christians, Rwanda back in 1994, the Hutus and the Tutsis, the Khmer Rouge with the Cambodians, obviously with the Nazis, and what Adolf Hitler was quoted as saying is, "Who speaks on the annihilation of the Armenians?" Therefore, if no one speaks on the mass atrocities, the annihilation of the Armenians, therefore, we can do it too in Europe and Eastern Europe. And this is what has led to the mass atrocities throughout the world. This is a very important issue, obviously, because H.R. 106, which was on the docket in the Congress in Washington, D.C., was obviously defeated with a multi-million-dollar lobbying effort by the government of the Republic of Turkey. This is an issue, again, that is near and dear to my heart, because the people of Armenia and Armenian Americans want respect and dignity just like everybody else, and to continue to educate the rest of the world why this is important. We need to educate all individuals, regardless of who they are and where they come from. Again, I want to thank our senator from Palo Alto, Mr. Joe Simitian, for bringing this up again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Senator Alquist, would you like to speak on this issue?
Yes, thank you. It was less than a month ago I stood up and spoke about what happened to the Greeks with the Ottoman Empire, and I want to thank Senator Joe Simitian for bringing this forward every year. I remember some years ago when Mr. Simitian and I were in the Assembly, I guess that was a long time ago, where one of the members stood up and said the genocide never occurred. And that is why it is so important that every year we talk about the dirty secrets of the heinous crimes that have happened to people. And certainly with what happened in the genocide, it is so important that we talk about it, that it be in our curriculum, and that these kinds of things hopefully will not happen in the future.
Senator Simitian, would you like to close?
Only to say thank you, Madam President, both to you and to my Senate colleagues, each and every one of whom has been supportive over the years, to those of you who've spoken today, to share, if I may, just a brief personal thanks and recollection of a trip to Armenia almost 10 years ago now with my Senate colleague, Carol Liu. It has really been a marvelous opportunity to tell this story, to make sure that the story keeps being told. I appreciate the courtesy of the Senate, and when the Assembly resolution makes its way to this House, we'll bring the measure forward for a vote by the California State Senate. Thank you again, members.
Thank you for bringing this forward. Members, we will move on to messages from the governor will be deemed read. Messages from the Assembly will be deemed read. Reports of committee will be deemed read and amendments adopted. Motions, resolutions, and notices. For the consent calendar, without objection, the following resolutions will be withdrawn from committee and placed on today's special consent calendar, SCR 13 and ACR 23. Introductions and first reading of the bills will be deemed read. Consideration of the daily file. Items second reading, file 1 through 14. Secretary will read.
Senate Bill 759, 245 with amendments, 28 with amendments, 33, 62, 458, 578 with amendments, 843,
Thank
208
you.
with amendments.
We will deem those first reading bills read. Second reading file. Second reading file will be deemed read. And we'll move on to the Senate third reading. Secretary will read. No. Item number 20, Senator Woke. Pass. Item 21, Senator Corbett. Pass. Item 22, Senator Lowenthal. Pass. Item 23, Senator Leno. Pass. Oh, there we are. Do you have your mic up? Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 687.
Oh, Secretary. Thank you, and we will pass. Item 24, Pavley.
No, probably 10.
Mic is up. Secretary, please read.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 29 by Senator Pavley relative to California Autism Awareness Month.
Thank you very much, Madam President and members. As you may already know, autism spectrum disorders, otherwise known as ASDs, now impact 1 out of every 110 children in the United States and are the fastest growing serious developmental disability that we face. It's growing at an estimation of 10 to 17% annually. These disorders have become more common than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Current scientific research demonstrates that the early identification and intervention of children with ASDs can result in significant positive outcomes in many children with ASD. California, the Mind Institute, and others are working very hard to support measures for early identification, assessment, intervention, education, and treatment of individuals with ASDs. And on a personal level, I'm very concerned about these children as they become adults and how they will fit into our society and their long-term care. Declaring April 2011 as Autism Awareness Month affirms that the state of California remains committed to the important issues related to autism spectrum disorder. I respectfully ask for your aye vote, and I want to thank Senate Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg for continuing to chair a select committee on this important issue.
Senator Dutton, would you like to speak to this issue?
Yes, Madam President. I'm proud to support this resolution. I had the honor to serve on the Senate Select Committee on Autism. And during this time, my staff and I worked with community stakeholders in the University of California, Riverside, to try to improve services for autism, especially in the remote areas and locations in our state. I was impressed by the collaboration and dedication of the Inland Empire Autism Task Force, and would like to add my support to this resolution and encourage a unanimous vote.
Senator Alquist.
Thank you. I rise in support of SCR 29. My work with constituents, I've held hearings on this topic in my district, and friends, and also I'm a member of the Senate Select Committee on Autism, has given me a better understanding of dedication of the individuals and families who work every day to make California a better place for people with autism. Autism certainly has had a major impact on individuals and their families who work in Silicon Valley. I am pleased that technology is currently playing a very important role to address and ameliorate this disorder. Many tech companies are not only providing insurance coverage for autism for their employees, but also exploring innovative approaches by which technology can improve the treatment for autism. For these and many other reasons, I rise in support of this resolution that emphasizes that each and every individual with an autism spectrum disorder is a valued and important member of our society.
Any further discussion or debate? Seeing none, Senator Pavley, would you like to close?
Yes, I ask for your aye vote in declaring April as Autism Awareness Month for the state of California.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Blakesley. Calderon. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee, aye.
Please call the absent members.
Blakesley. Aye. Correa. Gaines. Huff. Wolk. Huff, aye. Madam President.
The bill is passed, 37-0 no. Ayes 37, noes 0. Resolution is adopted. Item 25, Senator Leno. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 48 by Senator Leno, an act relating to instruction.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, it is my great pleasure to bring to the floor today SB 48, which is the Fair, Accurate, Inclusive, and Respectful Education Act. You may remember that we had some visitors here last week. There was a Queer Youth Advocacy Day in the Capitol. We've been doing this for a number of years now. And just to share with you the fact that I was one of those kids not so many, well, many decades ago. And I'd like to share with you what it was like growing up as a gay kid in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in the 1960s, a very different time and a very different place. At that time in the 1960s, the American Psychiatric Association still listed homosexuality as a mental illness. And it was still a felony for adults of the same sex to have consensual relations. There were absolutely no legal protections from discrimination in housing and employment based on sexual orientation. So the good news is times have changed. And thanks to many of you here, the laws have changed. But in many ways, other things have not changed. And they've not changed on our school campuses. Kids are still harassed, verbally, emotionally, abused, sometimes physically beat up and punched out just because they're different. And rather than censoring the facts that I've just shared with you from our school text, there's great value in sharing with students the great diversity of who we are as a society, and to share with them how society and how our democracy has struggled and debated with the challenges that the diversity brings to us. And when students begin to understand that these differences are our collective strengths and that their fellow students are their equals, as opposed to being despised because of their differences, because they are misfits, because they are queer, or because they are faggots, we begin to have less bullying, less aggression, and more understanding in our classrooms. And the severity of the level of bullying has only gotten worse. There are kids who can't endure this pain anymore. When they even survive the physical abuse, they have in some cases taken their own lives. In one instance, just a couple years ago in Ventura County, a 12-year-old boy was shot dead in his classroom by a fellow 12-year-old student because the victim was perceived to be too effeminate. Colleagues, we are failing our students and paying a high price for it. So, what this bill does is adds lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, and those with disabilities to a long list of other overlooked communities that are already included in our statute, in our education code, to have the roles and contributions of those communities included in an age-appropriate fashion to our curriculum. Now, there's a very long and engaged process. We've had this hearing in education and judiciary reviewing how our curriculum does change, how our textbooks are amended, as we have already included in them the role and contributions of African Americans and Native Americans and Mexican Americans and Asian Pacific Islander Americans, as well as women and those from different religious backgrounds, already in statute. And I can tell you that there have been a number of studies done. Let me get the proper names for you. There was the Preventing School Harassment Survey and also the Safe Schools Policy Survey, asking over 2,500 California students in districts where this inclusion is already in place what the levels of harassment were before and after. And we have documented that not only were LGBT students safer on school campus, but there was also less harassing due to mean-spirited comments. There was less harassing due to how one looked. Other ways that students belittle each other and harass each other. So we know we can do this. We know we can bring greater safety, greater understanding by better educating. And I was taken by the comments of our guest with regard to this recognition of the 95th anniversary of the Armenian Holocaust. Education is the key to bringing light to darkness. I would ask for your aye vote.
For the debate discussion, Senator Huff, do you have your mic up?
Thank you, Madam President. Recently, April 8th, there was an editorial that ran in the Los Angeles Times. It's not known as being the most conservative newspaper, at least in my district. But what it said, among other things, was politicians don't write good textbooks, and they shouldn't try. That's true in Texas, and many of you we actually had legislation, I believe, passed out of here that we wanted to make sure our textbooks were separate from Texas. They say that's true in Texas, but it's also true in California. California made the wise decision to have experts draw up a balanced social studies curriculum that became a model for schools nationwide. It's a decision for educators and textbook writers to make. If more is added to the social studies curriculum, something else will have to be deleted or treated more shallowly. SB 48 adds to an overly long list of requirements, and yet we complain that students are poorly educated. There's many other reasons why I think this well-intended bill doesn't hit the mark and that it creates other issues in our public schools, but I'd respectfully ask for your no vote on this.
For the debate or discussion, Senator LaMalfa.
Thank you, Madam President. It does pain me to have to rise on this bill here. I do have great respect for the author of the bill and how he and those that bring this subject feel about the situation, but I am a parent of 4 kids, and when you look across the landscape of how people feel about their public school system and what it ought to be emphasizing, and this really seems like the final stroke in a direction of curriculum and what content should be in school when this type of legislation would be put forward and possibly passed. I'm deeply troubled that kids would have to contemplate at a very early age when many of us at home are teaching abstinence. Most Americans, I think, really at their heart would favor abstinence. And now we're going to have very young people having to contemplate what is sexuality at a point of very tender ages when they shouldn't have to be thinking about that stuff. They're already blitzed with it on TV, media, many cases. So for me, this bill's trying to come down now to a bullying angle. And kids bully kids for whatever reason. In a way, they're non-preferential in the way they seek to bully people. It could be because you're the new kid at school. It could be because you're the obese kid. In my case, when I was 7th, 8th, 9th grade, I was the skinny kid. So you may not believe that, but at this point, but the seniors used to come rough me up because I was the skinny kid. So, you take it, you deal with it. This really comes down to a policy. What is the school's policy on bullying? On everybody, not selectively fighting one group, especially in a case like this where it can be seen as very objectionable to parents. Because again, this to me is the final frontier of advancing this agenda into the schools, something that years ago when the first legislation started happening in the area of LGBT said, oh, we're not going to put this into the schools. We're not going to put this into curriculum. Now, here we go. So as a parent, and I think for many parents across the state that see this, see that the CTA sent a letter of support at a time that CTA is complaining about school funding, is intending to descend upon this Capitol in protest, even taking kids out of school to do so. They're making this a priority bill. The priority ought to be teaching things in the school that revolve around the 3 R's. It really shakes the faith I think parents have in the public school system in California. Do you want to see them take their kids out in droves? I think this will really be a turning point for that. Yet this legislature also moves to cut out alternative school choices by the measures they make here. I've even seen during my time in the Assembly an effort to have school books be limited to 200-page limits. And so if we're going to have further legislation to limit the size of school books, what are we going to kick out of the curriculum in order to fit this kind of curriculum in? Are we going to take explorer Ferdinand Magellan out, his history? Are we going to take Winston Churchill out? Or do we have to contemplate whether Ferdinand Magellan may or may not have made contributions because he was a homosexual explorer? Do we have to contemplate these kind of things in school? That's what we're asking. That's what we're seeking here. You want to really shake up people's faith in the school system, just keep going this direction. At a time of fiscal crisis, we're doing this. At a time in the past when we're talking about limiting the size of textbooks. I voted against every curriculum addition that the legislature mandates. This ought to be made up. These decisions should be made by school boards, parents' associations, those in the education community, not us sitting here on the Senate floor, back on the Assembly floor deciding, wouldn't it be nice to make kids learn about this subject or that people or this ethnicity in schools? I've even voted against the Italian-American ones that have come up before. I've heard it from my Italian friends, me being of Italian descent, but I have to be consistent on this. Schools should be teaching the basics and not advancing, especially this agenda, which I think many, many people find objectionable. You know, I'm all about live and let live and live your own lifestyles as you see fit. But now you're pushing it in on our kids. So with respect to the author, who I know is a good man and means well, I have to strongly oppose this measure.
Senator Evans.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to talk about the purpose of the bill. The only agenda here is an agenda of tolerance, which, being a state that is made up primarily of immigrants and people from all walks of life, all economic levels, and many, many, many different attributes, the state of California is responsible in its education system for teaching tolerance. And that is how we live as a society and how we thrive and what our future is. But I want to speak as a woman of a certain age. And the reason that this bill means so much to me as a woman of a certain age, as are you, Madam President, and others on this floor as well. When I was a girl in school, I was bullied because I was a girl. I was bullied because I had red hair, and most kids don't have red hair. I was bullied because I have freckles, and most kids did not have freckles. I was also told, having been born with a thirst for justice, I might call a rage for justice, that I could not be a lawyer because I was not a man. I was a girl. And we grew up in that kind of a situation. And when we went into our classrooms and we read our history books, we did not read about girls or women and their accomplishments. We read exclusively about men and their accomplishments, as if women had nothing to do with history and the history of the human race, which is so odd to think about now. Not only that, but we read textbooks that were written only in the male gender, in the male pronoun, as if women were not part of the English language. So we were actually written out of the history books. We were written out of literature. And it wasn't until I was in college and I read an article written by a woman that took many of the very inspiring quotes throughout history and put them in the female gender that I suddenly knew I was, in fact, part of history. And I could, in fact, as a woman, be a part
of this country's future and the state's future. And that's what this bill is all about. We have people among us that identify themselves as gay or lesbian. That is the way God made them. That is the way they are. It is not a choice. It is not a lifestyle. It is not an agenda. Whether they identify themselves as gay, many people struggle with that. They are, in fact, gay. And all we are saying in this bill is that California tolerates people of every kind and welcomes them in our culture and makes them part of our education and makes them part of our future. That's all we're saying in this bill. And having experienced that kind of frustration and that kind of belief as a child that I couldn't be part of that future, I believe this is a very, very important bill, and for that reason I ask for your aye vote.
Senator Alquist.
Thank you very much. Senator Evans mentioned she was a woman of a certain age. Well, I'm a woman of a certain age, plus, being 66 years old. And I'd like to start by telling a story. When my dad came to America in 1922 when he was 16 years old, he did it because his mother was widowed and was left with 4 children. My dad came to America to earn money to help his family. And I also remember he gave money to the church till the week before he died at the age of 93. When he came to America, he knew Latin and French, ancient Greek, and modern Greek, and he wanted to become an American, and he went to night school. He was picked up by the police at 9 o'clock at night on his way home after night school because he had a trench coat on. And when he had the courage, he was very courageous, had the courage to say, well, why did you pick me up? He was told, because you look different. I will never, ever forget that. And in my younger years, I even had a few people say that to me. You look different. You look different. What are you? What we're saying with this legislation, at least my interpretation of it, is that all people have intrinsic value. And our textbooks ought to be written in a way that no one is excluded. And yes, I remember when I was a little girl, I read a lot of biographies and autobiographies. I remember reading about George Washington Carver. I didn't read about any women. I can remember when I ran for the assembly in 1996. And someone said to me, well, you're just too nice. You'll never make it up there. Excuses, excuses, excuses. But one of the bottom lines on this bill is that the bullying rate for children who are GLBT is extremely high, much higher than for any other children. And the suicide rate for GLBT children and teenagers is over twice that of that for any other child or teenager. And that must end. There must be toleration and talking about the intrinsic value of all people. And although I truly respect the respectful discussion on both sides of the aisle, I must say that this legislation is very important and that we must pass it.
Senator Runner.
Thank you, Madam President and members. I rise in opposition to this bill as well. I'm concerned about bullying. We all are. We don't want our children to be bullied for whatever reason, and Senator LaMalfa mentioned a few of those. I am concerned about the bill actually bringing into the curriculum just one aspect of a person's life, their sexual orientation. I feel the measure is unnecessary. Current law already requires social science instruction to include a study of the role of men, women, Black Americans, American Indians, Mexicans, that's how it reads, as well as other ethnic groups. And I feel like sexual orientation is included in that. And right now, as we look at our schools and how we're looking to fund our schools, it's just an additional burden that the schools will have in the publications. And I would ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Any further debate or discussion? Seeing none, Senator Leno, would you like to close?
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, thank you for the respectful debate. As Senator Evans pointed out, the very same arguments that were so vociferously used at the time of the idea, the very concept of women's studies, are used against this bill. A similar uproar occurred when there was the idea of black studies, that we were going to teach the facts of how our democracy had demonized a racial minority in our own history. That was fought for the same reasons. I heard my colleague say, I'm all for live and let live. Well, that's a very gracious statement, except your idea of live and let live makes me a second-class citizen in this country. No hyperbole, fact. Skinny people are not denied employment and housing because they are skinny. LGBT people are. Obese people are not denied the right, the basic human right to love to marry the person they love. And Italian people aren't denied the right to serve honestly, openly, and honorably in the military to defend their country. LGBT people are. We are second-class citizens. And children are listening. Children are listening. When they hear from their lawmakers, when they hear from their president, when they hear from their religious leaders, when they hear from their teachers, when they see that their teachers don't step up to the plate when their classmate is being harassed literally to death, they're listening and they get the message. There's something wrong with those people and their differences. It is our obligation, not unlike Senator Weiland's conviction of his obligation, to introduce and reintroduce legislation to make sure that our children are taught the facts of this Armenian Holocaust. It is our responsibility and obligation to make sure that our children understand not that a historical figure was homosexual. You're missing the point if you think that's what this bill is about. But if there's importance and reason to teach our children with pride, Willie Brown was the first African-American Speaker of the House in this legislature, first Speaker of the Assembly. There is important and reason to let children know that there was a man named Harvey Milk who was the first openly gay man, first openly gay or lesbian, bisexual, or transgender individual in the history of the state of California to run for office and win. That's a historic marker in this state's history. This is not going to change anyone's sexual orientation. This is not going to offend anyone's religious belief. Your First Amendment rights to freedom of religion, soundly protected by the First Amendment to our Constitution. But it's a historic fact, and important because of the kind of demonization that preceded his success running for public office. But the story doesn't end there. Because of hatred and small-mindedness, He was shot dead in his City Hall office for being who he was. That is an important fact if we are going to raise the understanding of our children. So again, I'm just going to conclude. I've heard the religious arguments against this. I've heard the oppositional voice repeatedly. The genius of our democracy is that our First Amendment protects everyone's right to freedom of religion. And I will fight to the death for anyone's religious freedom not being respected or minimized. But at the same time, we, unlike the Taliban, unlike other religious extremists around the world, do not craft state law based on any one particular interpretation of any one particular holy book. That's what makes this country different and great. Because our holy books underneath this proud dome are not the Torah or the Bible or the Koran. They are the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights. That's how we craft policy here, to ensure that we can finally fulfill the great hope of the American democracy, which is liberty and justice for all, equal protection under the law for all. I would ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. No. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Calderon. Aye. Cannella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. No. Evans. Aye. Fuller. No. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Tedlew. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. No. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee. Aye. Madam. Berryhill. No.
Ayes 23, noes 14. The measure has passed. Okay. Senator Semidian, for what purpose do you rise? And
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to present at this time on file item 35, which is SB 178.
Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 178 by Senator Semidian, enacting to hazardous materials.
Thank you, Madam President and members. This is a simple but helpful clarifying measure. Members will recall that when we passed Senate Bill 509 and AB 1879, the green chemistry legislation back in 2008, we created a green ribbon science panel. The expectation was that the panel could play a very helpful role in advising the Department of Toxic Substance Control on the implementation of green chemistry initiative. There are wide-ranging talents, a substantial number of members. This measure simply clarifies that the green ribbon science panel can work in focus groups, subgroups, if you will, that can focus on individual issues with greater clarity and focus without engaging the entire panel, who, as I say, have a wide range of knowledge and expertise. I would respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Would anyone like to speak on this bill? Seeing no further discussion or debate, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Anderson. Alquist, aye. Anderson, no. Berryhill. Blakesley. No. Calderon. Aye. Canella. No. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. No. Emerson. No. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. No. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. No. Kehoe. Aye. LaMalfa. No. Leno. Aye. Tedlew. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. No. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. No. Vargas. Aye. Walters. No. Wolk. Wright. Weiland. No. Yee. Yee, aye. Berryhill, no. Correa. Fuller.
No.
No. Gaines. Wolk. Wright. Madam.
Ayes 22, noes 14. The measure has passed. Okay, Senator Semidian.
Thank you, Madam President. File item 38, please.
Secretary will call the roll. Please read.
Senate Bill 24 by Senator Semidian, enacting to personal information.
Thank you, Madam President. Members will recall we have a data breach notification law in California passed back in 2002. It requires both state government and private holders of data to provide notice when there has been a security breach so that each and every one of us can take steps to protect ourselves. During the course of the last 8-9 years, 44 other states have followed California's lead. A number of them, however, have found ways to improve on the work we did, and one of those ways is by providing greater specificity in the notices that are provided. This both helps consumers who receive the notice. It also helps businesses who are then clear about what it is they are obliged to do. There is no opposition on the bill, members. Again, there is no opposition on the bill. You've seen this before. We sent it to the governor. He vetoed it in spite of the fact that it came out of both houses with bipartisan support. I would respectfully ask for an aye vote. No opposition on the bill.
Is there any debate or discussion? Seeing none. Secretary, Senator Semidian, would you like to close?
Ask for an aye vote.
Thank you. Secretary.
I had a question.
Senator Strickland.
This is a question to the author. I'm sorry, Mr. Semidian. I'm looking at our analysis. The realtors were in opposition. Are they still in opposition, or
not on this bill, sir?
Okay.
Once again, Madam President, no opposition on this bill. The only reason I feel comfortable presenting it to members is we've heard this measure before. We've taken amendments that eliminated all opposition, and as I said, we've sent it to the governor. We got a veto on the bill. I think we had some, frankly, bad baggage from another bill that it was previously tied to out of the Assembly. The bill is now on a standalone basis with no opposition. We had bipartisan support last year on this bill, and I would ask for bipartisan support again. Thank you.
Okay, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Aye. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe? Aye. Lamalfa? No. Leno? Aye. Ted Lieu? Aye. Carol Lieu? Aye. Lowenthal?
Aye.
Aye. Negrete McLeod? Aye. Padilla? Aye. Pavley? Aye. Price? Aye. Rubio? Runner? No. Semidian? Aye. Steinberg? Aye. Strickland? Aye. Vargas? Aye. Walter? No. Wolk? Wright? Aye. Wyland? Aye. Yee? Yee, aye.
Call the absent voters, please.
Dutton, no. Berryhill? Berryhill? No. Correa? Gaines? Huff? No. Rubio? Aye. Wolk?
Ayes 31, noes 6. Measure passed.
You should go first.
Senator Semidian, do you have another item? Then we will return to item 30. Senator Kehoe. Senator Kehoe.
I think he's going to read.
Secretary.
Senate Bill 206 by Senator Kehoe, an act relating to the payment of claims against the state, making an appropriation therefore, and declaring the urge thereof to take effect immediately.
Thank you, Madam President. This is the claims bill. It's SB 206. It is an urgency measure, members. It would appropriate $600,000 from the Board of Chiropractic Examiners Fund to the Board of Chiropractic Examiners to pay for a settlement. The board recently suffered an adverse verdict at a trial where the jury award exceeded $1 million. These two cases are similar. We approved the payment from the board's funds to settle this dispute. The Finance Department approves the payment, and it left the Appropriations Committee on a bipartisan vote. I ask for your aye vote.
Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist? Aye. Anderson? Aye. Berryhill? Aye. Blakesley? Aye. Calderon? Aye. Canella? Aye. Corbett? Correa? De Leon? Aye. DeSaulnier? Aye. Dutton? Aye. Emerson? Aye. Evans? Aye. Fuller? Gaines? Hancock? Aye. Harmon? Aye. Hernandez? Aye. Huff? Aye. Kehoe? Aye. Lamalfa? Aye. Leno? Aye. Ted Lieu? Aye. Carol Lieu? Aye. Lowenthal? Aye. Negrete McLeod? Aye. Padilla? Aye. Pavley?
Aye.
Aye. Price? Aye. Rubio? Aye. Runner? Aye. Semidian? Aye. Steinberg? Aye. Strickland? Aye. Vargas? Aye. Walters? Aye. Wolk? Wright? Aye. Wyland? Aye. Yee? Yee, aye.
Secretary, call the absent members.
Corbett? Aye. Correa? Fuller?
Aye.
Aye. Gaines? Wolk?
On the urgency measures, ayes 37, noes 0. On the measure itself, ayes 37, noes 0. The measure has passed. Okay, at this time, members, we are going to move back to. Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Lowenthal. Would you like to present your bill, or for what purpose do you rise?
Without reference to file ACR 4.
Item 78, Secretary, please read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 4 by Assembly Member Block relative to California Holocaust Memorial Week.
Thank you, Madam President and members. It's very fitting that after today's tribute that we've heard and the discussions on the genocide in Armenia, that we listen to ACR 4, which proclaims the first week of May as California Holocaust Memorial Week, which this body has recognized for the last 8 years. As you know, the Assembly is planning a ceremony on May 2nd, which is Yom HaShoah, which is the International Day of Remembrance, to deal with 3 issues: to remember, to recognize, and to rededicate. To remember that those that suffered under the Nazi tyranny. To recognize the heroism of those that provided assistance to the victims, and to rededicate ourselves to the principles of human rights, individual freedom, and equal protection under the law. ACR 4 will urge all Californians to observe the week of May 1st to May 8th, 2011, as the day of remembrance for the millions of victims of the Holocaust in an appropriate manner. This bill resolution has had no votes and has had 75 co-authors in the Assembly. I ask for your aye vote so that we can return this resolution in concurrence back to the Assembly so they can have this resolution when they honor the Holocaust and the memorial on their May 2nd ceremony. Thank you, and I urge an aye vote.
Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, if there is no objection, I'll apply the unanimous vote. Ayes 37, noes 0 from the last measure. Seeing none, resolution adopted. Senator Pavley, for what purpose do you rise?
File item 36.
Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 646 by Senator Pavley, enacting to toxics.
Yes, Senate Bill 346 removes an enforcement loophole in California's lead-containing jewelry law that's needed in order to protect the public health, particularly the health of children. You all know that lead is a known neurotoxin. This is an unintended consequence of a loophole created in a law I authored several years ago. This bill had unanimous bipartisan support in Senate EQ. On a 7-0 vote, I ask for your aye vote.
Any debate or discussion? Seeing none, without objection, we will. Okay, roll call vote. Please call for the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Blakesley. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Kehoe. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Ted Lieu. Aye. Carol Lieu. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye. Anderson. Aye to no. Blakesley. Aye. Dutton. No. Huff. No. Walters. No.
Call the absent members.
Correa. Gaines. Harmon. Kehoe. Wolk. LaMalfa. Aye to no.
Ayes 30, noes 5. Measure is passed. We're going to move to privileges of the floor. And Senator LaMalfa, for what purposes do you rise?
For purpose of recognition.
Please proceed.
We have joining us in the gallery from Roseville, the Wood Creek High School Advanced Placement Government class. You're watching government be made. Welcome to your California State Senate.
Members, we will return to consent calendar. Secretary, please read.
Senate Bill 293, 301, 288, 837, 226, 303, and 518.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alquist. Aye. Anderson. Aye. Berryhill. Aye. Blakesley. Aye. Calderon. Aye. Canella. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. De Leon. Aye. DeSaulnier. Aye. Dutton. Aye. Emerson. Aye. Evans. Aye. Fuller. Aye. Gaines. Hancock. Aye. Harmon. Hernandez. Aye. Huff. Aye. Kehoe. LaMalfa. Aye. Leno. Aye. Tedlew. Aye. Carolou. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Padilla. Pavley. Aye. Price. Aye. Rubio. Aye. Runner. Aye. Simidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Strickland. Aye. Vargas. Aye. Walters. Aye. Wolk. Wright. Aye. Wyland. Aye. Yee. Yee. Aye. Padilla. Aye.
Call the absent members.
Correa. Gaines. Harmon. Kehoe. Wolk.
Call the absent members.
Correa. Gaines. Harmon. Kehoe. Wolk.
Place the consent calendar on call.
Pass it out.
Senator Dutton, for what purposes do you rise? No.
Just for an announcement, there'll be a brief Republican caucus immediately following session. It'll only take about 5 minutes.
Senator Liu.
I rise adjourn in memory.
Please
I ask
proceed.
that we adjourn in the memory today for my friend and constituent Sidney Harmon. He was a nationally recognized businessman, public servant, publisher, and philanthropist who died this past Tuesday. He was 92. Sidney was also a longtime husband of former Congresswoman Jane Harmon. Sidney was an Army veteran of World War II. He was also a groundbreaking co-creator of Harman Kardon Incorporated. They created the concept of high fidelity. He was the first to combine an amplifier, preamp, and radio tuner into a single piece of furniture, basically the iPod of its day. But his greatest legacy may very well be how his leadership improved social justice and created public service programs nationwide. In the 1970s, Sidney learned that African-American workers at one of his plants in Tennessee were upset over being deprived of coffee breaks. Overruling his managers, he visited their plant and began Crawford Workplace Management. This became a case study for the Harvard Business School. And on a personal note, I was always impressed with Sidney Harmon's ability to recite Lincoln and Shakespeare from memory. Today, I'm reminded of one of Lincoln's quotes, and in the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. Sidney had a great measure of both, and he will be missed.
Thank you. Senator Steinberg, for what? Oh, Sorry, Senator Rubio.
Thank you, Madam President Pro Tem. To stand adjourned in memory.
Please proceed.
Colleagues, unfortunately, I have to stand before you to adjourn in memory of two courageous soldiers who we lost last week. Lieutenant Matthew Ira Lowe, 33, and Lieutenant Nathan Hollingsworth Williams, 28, died tragically when their FA-18F Super Hornet went down during a routine training flight on April 6, 2011. The jet crashed about a half a mile from the Naval Air Station in Lemoore, California. The cause of the crash is still unknown. Lieutenant Lowe was the pilot, and during his career he earned the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal and the National Defense Service Medal. Lieutenant Nathan Williams was a weapons service officer, and during his career he earned many medals, including the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, and he flew numerous missions in Afghanistan. The two men were assigned to Strike Fighter Squadron 122, also known as Flying Eagles, a fleet replacement training squadron. Lieutenant Lowe became a pilot in 2006 and reported to Lemoore Base in 2009. His parents, Pamela and Ira Lowe, described their fine son as a committed and courageous young man. Lieutenant Williams joined the squadron in Lemoore last year after becoming a naval flight officer in 2007. He loved music, specifically the saxophone. And in 2007, Nathan married his beautiful wife, whom he met in college, Meredith Williams. They had no children, but they have 2 dogs and a lovely horse. He is also survived by an older brother, Jeffrey, and his younger brother, Seth. Both pilots lived in the hardworking community of Hanford, about a block from one another. We remember these 2 men for their honorable determination and bravery while serving. My thoughts and prayers are with the loved ones of Lieutenant Matthew Lowe and Lieutenant Nathan Williams, as well as the entire Lemoore Naval Base and community. I was deeply saddened to learn of this tragedy, and am reminded that the men and women of our armed forces put their lives at risk every single day in defense of our beloved country. So therefore, I ask that we adjourn in their memory today.
Thank you. Members, we are going to return and lift the call from the consent calendar. Please call the absent members.
Correa, Gaines, Harmon, Kehoe, Kehoe aye, Wolk.
It's 36, no 0. The consent calendar has passed, and now we will return to Senator Padilla under privileges of the floor.
Madam President, 2 brief announcements. The first is the Senate Energy, Utility, and Communications Committee is having a hearing today relative to nuclear power plant safety in California. That committee will meet in room 112 approximately 30 minutes after we adjourn. So at this time, it's looking about 11:15, 11:20 or so in room 112. And also want to, not just for the LA delegation, but I think really for all legislators who care about education throughout the state, acknowledge the retirement of Superintendent Ramon Cortines from the Los Angeles Unified School District. We'll attempt to do a proper resolution and recognition, but any of you who know him will know that as much as he battles for the limelight when it comes to student performance and accountability, he shuns the limelight when it comes to recognition and honoring him. But tomorrow's his last day as superintendent of the LA Unified School District, and I just want to take a moment to recognize his 55-year career in education. A teacher at all levels of K through 12, and certainly in administration, including having served as superintendent of multiple school districts in California, especially its largest. He is advised formally and informally many governors, presidents of the United States, and the state of California is truly indebted to his service. Thank you.
Former Senator H.L. Richardson is in the back of the chambers, I'd like to note, and I'd like to give him a hand. Senator Yee.
Thank you very much, Madam President. Let me just join my good friend, Senator Alex Padilla, in adding words of congratulations to Ramon Cortines.
When I was on the San Francisco Board of Education, Ramon Cortines had just left San Jose to come to San Francisco. He was, in fact, a breath of fresh air, an individual who was absolutely committed to our children, to the quality of education. And back in those days, the Board of Education was rather divided, but Ramon Cortines kind of stood above it all, and he never engaged in the divisiveness within the school district. He really stayed focused on what he was about, and that is to lead the school district for all of our children. I personally had some difference of opinion with him, but that never stood in his way in working with me and so many other school board members. And San Francisco is a lot better because of Ramon Cortines. After he left, he went to all kinds of different posts, and I'm glad that he ended up in L.A. because I'm sure that the students and the children in L.A. have benefited from his leadership and his strong advocacy on behalf of those children's education. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Alquist.
Thank you, and adjourn in memory. It's with a heavy heart I would like to adjourn in memory of Alejandra Marie Gonzalez, the daughter of Alvina Gonzalez, and Ron Gonzalez, the former mayor of San Jose. Alejandra passed away Saturday morning at the all too young age of 31 after a month-long battle in the intensive care unit at Valley Medical Center in San Jose with H1N1 and pneumonia. Alejandra was a talented graphic artist, illustrator, and cosmetic artist who reflected the beauty of the world with her artwork and joyful personality. In addition to her parents, among those who remember her are her fiancé, Tulio Rosello, her grandmothers, Mary Padilla and Dolores Gonzalez, her two sisters, Miranda and Rachel, Anise and Elisa Perez, and numerous aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends. I ask that the members of the Senate please join me in adjourning in memory of Alejandra, and may her memory be eternal.
Thank you. Senator Liu.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to join Senator Padilla and Senator Yee in thanking Ramon Cortines for his fabulous leadership in the education area. He was the superintendent of schools from Pasadena during the tumultuous times in the 60s when they integrated their schools, and he too just was focused on student performance, and I want to really thank him for his service. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Steinberg, for what purpose do you rise?
A couple of things, Madam President. I know the Budget Committee is anxious to get started, and I want to be mindful of that. Senator Dutton has called a brief Republican caucus. During that 2 minutes and 20 seconds, we'll have a brief Democratic caucus as well, in and out, so the Budget Committee can begin. Given the time sensitivities here, we do have a number of very impressive young people here on our Senate floor who are the 9 finalists for the California Boys and Girls Club Youth of the Year Award. And what I intend to do is to stick around after we adjourn to take pictures with the young people, and I invite any of the senators, of course, who represent these young people to join me. But let's give a warm welcome now to the following people. Jordan A. Dodd Waddington, who is a constituent of Senator Anderson. Elizabeth Tapia, a constituent of Senator Emerson. Violet Mihela, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, a constituent of Senator Pavley. Dennis Ohogo, a constituent of Senator Price. Welcome to you, sir. Angel Morales, a constituent of Senator Strickland's. Very good. Christian Guerrero, a constituent of Senator Correa. Jesse Correa, a constituent of Senator Leno. Richard Hervey, who is my constituent. Welcome. And Jose Ordaz, a constituent of Senator Alquist. One of these young people will be chosen as the California Youth of the Year and will enter into the regional competition for the National Youth of the Year award. The Boys and Girls Club provides safe haven and wonderful experiences and enrichment for tens of thousands of young people. We celebrate them, and we celebrate you as representatives of a great organization. And good luck with the competition. We hope that there is a tie for first among all of you, all right? Good luck. Thank you. Madam President, as long as I have the microphone, next week is the Senate spring recess, the legislative spring recess. We will reconvene again with the busy schedule. You can tell things are picking up here at noon a week from Monday. All right? Thank you very much. Wish everyone a wonderful holiday, whether it's Passover, Easter, or any other celebration. Let's get some rest, come back, let's get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be on spring recess beginning at the end of today's session. We will reconvene on Monday, April 25th at noon. Yes, Senator Leno.
Thank you, Madam President. For purposes of announcement,
yes,
the Budget and Fiscal Review Committee will convene at 11:15 in room 4203.
11:15, room 4203.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll stand in recess until 3:30. The adjournment motion will be made then. We will reconvene on Monday the 25th at noon. Senate stands in recess.